And welcome to the Technology Geek podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Lapani, the Technology Geek. As we are here, as we are every week, to talk computers, the internet, all that jazz, anything pretty much geek, ham radio, programming, computers, and pretty much anything I feel like talking about on the Technology Geek podcast. Pretty much what we talk about here. It's quite an interesting show, to say the least. A lot of it is me just hanging out with friends around a microphone a lot of the time, but we have a good time here. And this is actually going to be our 40th podcast already. And I do apologize. We still had some audio issues last week with the show, but I believe this week we should have them pretty much worked out. I think we had an issue with GarageBand, but I think we have actually officially worked out the problems here with our system. And I believe we actually should have fairly decent sound quality. If not, as always, comment on the show, and we will do the best we can to resolve it. But I'm pretty sure that we actually went ahead and got most of the audio issues straightened out. And I'm glad I finally figured it out. It took a little while, but I think we have them out. And if it's not, we'll figure it out again next week as we work on to make it better. So like I said, it's our 40th podcast, and always a lot going on here in the world of technology, but we got a couple topics we want to talk about today. As always, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor over at ManGreat, our buddies over there over at ManGreat. Wonderful customer service, wonderful group guys over there. They make a great product. If you want a superior grilling system, this is it. You put these things on and you cook, and it cooks everything well, cooks everything good, cooks it through and through. We've used them many times here at my house when we were actually doing, over the weekend we were doing grilling and stuff like that. We used them all summer long out there. It's really a wonderful grilling system, and those guys over at ManGreat definitely know what the hell they're doing. So we're very lucky to have them as a sponsor, and those are buddies over at ManGreat. And you get a discount in your first purchase if you use our coupon code TechGeek, TECHGEEK. And those are our buddies over at ManGreat. And we're very lucky to have them as a sponsor here of the Technology Geek radio show, podcast, whatever you really want to call it, podcast, webcast. It really depends on how you look at it. But really lucky to have those guys from our friends over there at ManGreat. And so a lot of other things we have going on as well. Talking of podcasting, which as everybody knows, this is a podcast. Mostly everybody knows, unless you're listening to it on a streaming channel. But one of the things I want to say, Anthony Cumia, a friend of ours from another podcast, remember him from the Opie and Anthony show, he is actually going ahead this weekend, and he had a poker tournament this weekend at a Mohegan Sun, and he had a live podcast from there and all that. The podcasting industry, really... everybody always looks to help everybody. I want to give him a shout out as well. He probably doesn't need it from us, but I'm sure he's got more. I'm positive he's got more listeners than we do. But he's having a thing this weekend, and really cool. As well as, folks, I want to point us out our website, technologygeek.org. On there, you can actually see a link to the Tech Podcast Network. Those guys are wonderful, and we're really lucky to have those guys from the Tech Podcast Network. A lot of wonderful podcasts, technology podcasts up there from those guys as well. And we're a member of their group, so please go ahead and support those guys as well. They do have a lot of great podcasts up there, and make sure you support those guys, because they definitely do. A lot of those guys work very, very hard on producing good quality programming for everybody. And as well as, I also want to give a shout out to a friend of ours over at, believe it or not, it's actually called the Drunken Book Podcast. He's a friend of mine. I met him up on the podcast subreddit. Look up his podcast. He's just getting going. He's only got a couple of episodes up, but every week he discusses a different book. It's about a half-hour podcast. It actually is really well. He gave a shout out for us this past week, and I want to give a shout out to him over at again, the Drunken Book Podcast, and you can look him up on iTunes or on Reddit or on SoundCloud. He's got a good podcast as well, and also too another great podcast that I'm sure everybody I'm sure if anybody looked on at all, opened up the internet this past week, you would see as well that Colt Cabana, he has a podcast as well, and when he talked to CM Punk about his departure from WWE. I know a lot of guys that listen to our show are actually WWE fans, and he had Colt Cabana up there on his podcast. Colt Cabana had CM Punk up on his podcast this past week, and he did a really nice job with it. And I'm really glad for Colt Cabana. He's a really nice guy, and I want to give a shout out to him to his podcast as well. And again, folks, if you like wrestling, it's a wonderful podcast, and he had Punk on there, and Punk talked to him about why he left and all that, and he really made some major waves as far as not having CM Punk on there, and really really pushing the podcast industry far ahead with interviews like that and groundbreaking stuff. Rogan's definitely one of those guys as well. I'm sure he doesn't need a shout out from us, but Rogan's another guy that's really done a lot in the podcasting world, as well as Adam Carolla. And let me tell you, Leo Laporte's another guy. He's a podcast pioneer as well, and he talks about podcasting stuff all the time, and he says all the time, it's people that want to watch the show will watch it live, not to listen to it after. He's said many times the only reason why to have live shows is for fan interaction, because a lot of people, actually, listen to podcasts and stuff on the go. People don't have to be on, it's not like radio where if you don't listen to it now, you can never get it again. Podcasting is becoming an industry where, a lot of people do it live, but if you don't, there are people that don't do it live that are just successful as the people that do it live. So it is really neat. We're not a live show yet, but we're working on it. I'm actually looking, like I said, we're looking at doing Google Hangouts or something like that later on to actually really do, build up the fan interaction and stuff like that. But we're working on that. But for today, you got the Technology Geek podcast. So this episode, I want to talk about Elenco build kits. I actually built an Elenco variable voltage power supply about a couple weeks ago, and it definitely was something that was a cool project. It's not a long project. It's kind of a very good beginner project for anybody out there that hasn't dealt with any type of build kits or anything like that. It definitely is an easy project. It's not something that's incredibly complicated. Like I said, I did mine fairly quickly, and I have it right here. And it's not a hard project. I mean, just some transistors, resistors, a couple other things, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of soldering to go. There's a little voltage regulator in here. There's a connection to your to the wall outlet that you have to solder on, and a few other things. But it's not a hard kit. But I actually built one of these. Those guys over in Elenco are just amazing. They do a lot of wonderful build kits, and I really like those guys. And again, it's a good beginner's build kit. I built it for a couple reasons. One, because I wanted to use it to power my ham radio, and it worked pretty well. It works pretty well for that. And as well, I wanted to use it to power some other things I'm working on. I like to do a lot of electronic build kits, and this is actually a really great power supply. And I've actually read on the internet, quite a few people actually went ahead and actually added some voltage regulation and stuff like that. I didn't do it. I just did it the way they designed it. But it actually, like I said, it is actually a really good build kit, and it definitely is worth, anybody out there who definitely wants to do a build kit, this is definitely worth the time. It was cheap too. I think it was like $40. Not a lot of money, but definitely is a really cool build kit. Like I said, for those of you, I don't know if it does require soldering. I know some people are get a little freaked out when they hear the word soldering, but it's not really hard to solder. You can find tons of YouTube videos and stuff like that on soldering. It actually is really, it's really fairly easy. There's wire wrap soldering. I don't do that. I rather do just plain old ordinary soldering with non-lead solder. I think it's neater, cleaner, tighter. It gets a little less confusing. Some guys don't like to do that. I would rather personally solder myself. But this is a soldering kit. Again, it's not hard. I mean, there's only maybe a dozen components to solder on the board. It's actually not a lot of work. But it definitely is really cool. From what I've read from what I've seen on the internet, I mean, it took me about an hour and a half to complete the project. They say it could be up to 10 hours. I mean, like I said, there's only about 18 components to solder on. So, it's not incredibly difficult, but Elenco, the variable voltage power supply kit, it's a good starter kit. It's a good quality parts. That's what I like about it. You have it's a printed circuit board, so it's not like you really have to mess with it. The directions were very clear, which is something that on a lot of these build kits you really struggle with. But it was actually pretty. I mean, the directions are really well done. I can't complain about anything Elenco usually does. I mean, they're usually pretty solid especially with their directions and stuff like that. I've never had a problem with any of that stuff. I did read on the internet though, and I talked to a friend of mine that did this kit that actually did it with wrap soldering. I know he did have some problems with connectivity, but that could have been the way he wrapped it too. But so it's more of the kit is more of a really insert part A into location B1 type of kit. You don't really have to be incredibly electronically gifted to figure it out. I mean, if anything, this is just like putting a piece of furniture together. The directions, but they're really that good. It's like I said, it was really. It actually teaches you what each part of the circuit does. It includes both a lesson and quiz test section as well, if you really want to go that far. But like I said, I mean, there's nothing really complicated. It's just transformers, capacitors, resistors, IC regulators, stuff like that. I mean, there's some screws and washers stuff you got to use. You might need a wrench, but nothing really incredibly difficult to do. It was a really easy kit, and then the power supply itself actually works really well for a build kit. I know sometimes when you get build kits, I've actually built low voltage CW kits that are actually pretty crappy quality, but this actually was really, really nice quality, so I can't really complain at all about it. There's another useful section of the directions too. It shows the wave format that can be seen with an oscilloscope, a voltmeter, by the way, if you wanted to. It doesn't come with any tools or anything. You have to have your own tools, but that's what these guys really do, and it really does help keep the price down. Some of these kits actually come with like crappy voltmeters and stuff like that, and those things actually really, in my opinion, they drive the price up, and the tools aren't really that good either. So I'm really glad these guys let you use your own tools, your own products. I think it makes things a lot better. So another useful section, like I said, you can actually see on the circuit board, which is good if you don't have oscilloscope, so that you can actually it makes it a lot easier to know where things go. Like I said, you don't need an oscilloscope. You don't need to do it. A voltmeter is actually pretty good. Test the voltage on it, but you don't need to again. But there's just a lot of just overall, it's a really nice quality. Everything's metal. There's nothing really too much plastic, obviously, except for the circuit board. The wires they send you are good quality. There's nothing really. I can't really have anything to complain about it. The only thing bad about it doesn't have an on-off power switch, but you can add one if you want to. I didn't, but I read a lot of guys on the internet, and I know some guys that in my radio club that actually did add an on-off switch. So, but it doesn't have a display or anything, so you need a multimeter, like I said, to confirm the output voltage. That's probably maybe that and your soldering gun and some solder. Well, it comes with solder, but that and your soldering gun are probably going to be the only two things you're really going to need for this project at all. So, the power supply runs off an LM3170T varying voltage regulator. So, it's fairly low power count. It's not like you're going to really get zapped hard if you make a mistake. Some of that. I mean, obviously, it shouldn't be plugged in anyway when you're soldering, but, it's not like you're going to get whacked or anything like that from it. But, it's really good quality. In the kit, some of the kits I've read have a 220 UF, some have 470 UF, electronic, capacitors. Some of them placed with 1,000 UF cap, but it really depends on what they put in the kit, what they had available to them. But either way, all the stuff I've read, they're good quality. I haven't had any issues with it at all. Testing the supply like I said, with the multimeter works really well. The voltage output from what I've seen actually ramped up to about 16.5 volts, so this is a little higher than the 12 volts, but that's fine. They do that to give themselves a little cushion too. So in case you plug something in that's 13 volts, it doesn't kill the supply or burn it out. So all things considering, they said everything worked as advertised. Soldering was fairly easy. It took me, like I said, an hour and a half, 2 hours. But that's because I have experience with soldering. I mean, this is a good project. Even if you have young kids or anything, they just want to learn to solder. I mean, this is a really cheap project to learn how to solder on. So it definitely is worth it. Just to get somebody, just to learn how to solder, it's worth, the money. A lot of, before you, this is something I'd buy for a kid or something like that. If they wanted to learn how to solder before I stick them in front of a $200, CW build kit that's a couple $100. So, I mean, that's what this is really for. And, you do need a power supply to test any electronics. This is, like I said, a good starter kit. So, like I said, it's quite. I mean, it's a useful project. It can be used for almost anything, ham radios. It can be used for electronic kits, anything like that. So I think it was a good quality. I'm glad I purchased it, but I would definitely give it definitely a 4-star, 5-star rating. I mean, it was worth the money. It's good quality. The plastic is really nice plastic. Even the outer case is well made. I mean, it's a quality kit. It's not garbage. So it definitely was worth the purchase. And I hope if you are going to buy the kit, definitely go ahead and then buy it. It's worth the money. It'll be a good kit, especially for any kid or any starting up radio operator, even anybody that wants to learn how to solder or run anything like that. I mean, it's a good quality kit. It definitely is worth buying. You won't regret it. So I mean, like I said, the wires are good quality. The insulators for hooking up to the wall outlet was well made. And everything on it was just really, really well made. And Elenco's got a good reputation for that stuff. So I'm really glad that we actually got this kit and actually did it, because it really is. It was well worth the money, and I think overall it's a good quality kit. So some other things as well, folks. I wanted to talk about here. I know we're not a political show. But actually, the reason why I caught on to this was because I wanted to talk about this for a minute before we go on to the tech news of the week, and then obviously your questions and my answers. But there are a lot of politicians that are pushing for that government shutdown still, and I mean, the last time it happened, I mean, I think it hurt a lot of people. I don't know. I think that they're pushing for this again for the whole budget thing, and I think this is really it's really ridiculous. They want to shut the government down again to try to. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a lot of people that just can't get along. I think one of the reasons they want to go ahead and shut the government down, it's a plan to, they want to pretty much hurt Obama for, the immigration vote and stuff like that, and I think that it's just really, really just. I think it's really, really something that they're doing just to hurt people, and it really is, unfortunate. And I think that times Washington really needs to get their act together. They're supposed to run this country, and sometimes I think they don't know what they're doing. But that's just me. So some other things as well that came out this week. Obviously, the first Star Wars trailer released. Obviously, a lot of people, including myself, were on the internet talking about that this week. And a lot of people thought it was fake at first, but obviously it was real, and it was really neat to see it. And I really enjoyed, the first stormtrooper we saw him with his helmet off, and then obviously, you have the new looking lightsaber. A lot of people were all the buzz about that. We saw the Millennium Falcon. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be plenty of lens flare in Star Wars because of J.J. Abrams. I'm sure there's a lot more we haven't seen yet. Again, we have a whole year to wait, so I'm sure we'll be getting a year's worth of trailers before now and next Christmas. So I'm sure there's a lot more going to come out with it. But the first trailer actually looked really neat. I was actually pretty hyped about it. And I think everybody that's a Star Wars fan is pretty excited about the new Star Wars trailer. And obviously we have Jurassic Park coming out fairly soon as well. And just so many other big blockbuster movies coming out. Obviously, another Avengers coming out, another X-Men. I think the next 2 years of summer blockbusters is going to definitely be huge. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we just had the next Hunger Games come out. That was a really neat thing. Obviously, we have another, one thing I'm really looking forward to is Amazon Prime. They have the Bosch books coming. They have the Bosch books. They've actually turned that into a mini-series. And as you know, the Netflix CEO went ahead and he thinks broadcast TV will be dead by 2030. We've talked about that several times on the show already. So just a lot of things, really just going out as far as the movie world. And a lot of good movies coming out for us geeks. Obviously, I'm sure there's another Star Trek in the works as well. And by the way, for those of you that are fans of the show Haven, talking about... I don't know if anybody here watches Haven. I love the show. I think it's a great show. But from what I saw this past week was the mid-season finale, and it looks like William Shatner is going to have a small role in the show. obviously this other some kind of form of something in the show after the new year. So we'll go ahead and we'll see what that is. As that progresses, I'd be curious to see what role he's going to play in Haven. I'm sure it'll be a good role, but like I said, he's definitely going to be playing a part in Haven coming up the second half of the season. I really like his acting. I'm excited to see what he's actually going to do in Haven. It's definitely sci-fi, so we know we can definitely handle it, but we'll go ahead and see what happens with that. So we're going to go ahead and we'll talk on some of the tech news as well. We're already talking about it now. But let's not forget about our other sponsor. We don't want to forget about any of our sponsors. But let's not forget our buddies over at ProXPN. Those guys over there, they're a wonderful company. They have a VPN-based solution. And we do get a lot of security questions here on the show, but those guys over at ProXPN, if you're going to do any banking, using any type of Wi-Fi or anything, you definitely should have a VPN solution. Those are our buddies over at ProXPN. Use our offer code TechGeek, TECGEK, and you'll get, I think, 30% off the lifetime of your membership. It actually is a really good buy if you really want to think about it. But again, those are our buddies over at ProXPN, and again, that sponsor code or offer code is TechGeek, TECGEK, and we're really lucky to have those guys as a sponsor, as well as if you go to our website, technologygeek.org, let's not forget about our link on the bottom of the page there for Amazon. Click on, if you're going to be doing some shopping, click through on that and go shopping on our site, and we'd really appreciate that. We'll get a couple bucks for it, and all the money we get, folks, for the show, none of it goes in my pocket. It all goes to keeping the website, the server up and running. And like I said, if any money that anybody can, donate or give or help support the show just by doing a little thing like clicking through on a link, we greatly appreciate that. So some other things as well I found on InfoWars this week as far as tech news goes. Obviously, scientists are urging the government to turn old TV frequencies into free super Wi-Fi. That was actually on InfoWars this week. That's another show that I really like, InfoWars. He's actually on the radio. He's not a podcast, but his show is available in podcast form. And Alex Jones' show is really one of the very few political shows I will actually listen to, because a lot of his stuff, I think he does a lot of research on it, and some of the stuff he says is true, but it's controversial as well. And it actually is, if you like political news, he's right up there with Glenn Beck, so it definitely is worth watching. But apparently they want to take old television frequencies that are becoming available for other users around the world thanks to a switch from analog to digital televisions, and they're actually urging the government, like I said, to be part of an auction of these, to actually, to auction is often used for mobile networks, Wi-Fi, stuff like that. They actually want to do a super Wi-Fi, which would have far wider range than existing Wi-Fi networks. Most Wi-Fi networks are only 2 gigahertz or above. This would actually give people a lot better range and signal and stuff. This especially be good in the big cities. So they're looking at that. Apparently, there's a KIT in Germany is actually looking at the KITs. They're actually a university. They actually had some people doing some research and stuff on it to see. This would actually something really, really neat, especially around your larger cities and stuff. This would actually be a really wonderful thing. So we will get in. That's something that they're working on. I have a feeling we'll see that over the course of the next, maybe the next 5-6 years. We'll see something go on with that. Let's not forget too about our Kim.com. The U.S. efforts to jail Kim has failed. Kim looks like he's going to pretty much be walk free for a while. They took they put Kim.com behind. They're trying to put him behind bars, and obviously failed. He Mega Upload founder. He's fighting extradition and stuff like that. But after 3 days of hearings, Kim left the courtroom smiling, obviously, because he was told he's not going to be extradited. He faces copyright infringement and stuff like that in America, but it doesn't look like they're going to get him over here. From what they've been saying, the government had wiretap evidence from the FBI and says that apparently the information didn't appear in court, and Kim has apparently been able to walk free. Obviously, he did Mega as well. A lot of big things he did, and they said the whole life, obviously, concerns from the United States, allegedly his wealth, and they're worried he's going to be a flight risk. But apparently, Kim said that he was arrested in 2012. He made about $40 million on Mega Upload, but obviously he said he doesn't have any money from his luxurious lifestyle. I don't buy that at all. I think he's just saying that. That's just me. But apparently Kim's still fighting all this, and he's got the money. He can keep fighting this for a long time. I don't think he's going to get extradited out. I mean, Julia Assange's still in that embassy, almost a couple of years later. So I mean, I think it's going to be, I think all this stuff is just a lot of this has just been dragging on and on. I think it's going to keep dragging on and on, which, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on a lot of this stuff, but. And I think I think Mega Upload was really cool, but I think part of the problem is people just used it in the wrong way. So, Netflix CEO, by the way, saying broadcast TV will be dead by 2013. We talked about that. Nelson ratings are actually somehow going to are going to start doing ratings on Netflix show. I think that's pretty neat, but. They're saying the only people watching TV are people over the age of 54. They're saying most younger people do not watch network television. I don't really believe that, to tell you the honest truth, because I know a lot. All my buddies all have DVRs and cable. I don't really buy that they're saying people that are over the age of 54 are the only ones watching television. I would believe if they said that people over the age of 54 are the only ones watching cable news, I would believe that because, especially I know a lot of people. I don't know many of my friends that stay up till 11:30 to watch, the weather on the news. I don't really believe that. I know I don't. I do like to watch the local news a little bit, but. When I say watch it, I mean like if I want to see what the local weather forecast is going to be, I just go to WNAP.com. I mean, I don't sit up till 11:15, 11:30 waiting to see the weather forecast. So that's something, or I go to the National Weather Service. So I do think that broadcast TV has changed a lot over the last couple of years. But I don't believe that when he says that broadcast TV is going to be dead. I know too many of my young friends that have DVRs and DVR things. So I don't know about that. I know my wife is somebody that watches everything online. She doesn't really DVR anything. But I think definitely cable television has definitely changed. But I don't know if it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be dead by 2030. I don't know about that. So, by the way, as well, Microsoft and Yahoo start forgetting EU search results. They're following Google's footsteps. Microsoft started it, and so did Yahoo. That was in the news. That was on InfoWars. That was another one of their articles. I think that to a certain degree, what you search should be kept confidential to a certain degree. But search giant Bing and Yahoo have begun to, address European customers' request regarding the right to be forgotten policy on removing of search results, taking their cue from Google. The right to be forgotten stands for people's ability to remove links to personal information that is, inadvertently or no longer relevant. I know Google's taken out of 174. They've actually completed 174,000 requests, and they've had up to 600,000 URL removal requests. So they've removed about 41.5%. They say of the requests get handled. So. But you're actually allowed to do that. So if you don't want your stuff ending up in Google, you can. I know the funny thing is a lot of times, I think the interesting part about this is a lot of times people that have businesses and websites actually work very, very hard to get onto Google because sometimes Google misses them, in their searches. So I think that's kind of interesting as well. Amazon obviously unveils an army of robots to deal with the Christmas surge. That was in the news. We remember a couple years back. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos said that they were going to actually use drones to start delivering people's stuff. That has not happened yet, but I mean, this is again part of their whole robotics thing, and actually working, to try to be more efficient, things like that. Especially Amazon. This is their big time of year. Obviously, is this year, and they're working quite hard to get all those things out, so they're obviously using robots and stuff to help out. But I mean, I can't picture a ton of drones flying your stuff, just like Netflix made a joke about that, saying that they were going to have drones delivering your movies, but that was funny. But some other things as well, Anchorman and some of your other favorites coming to Netflix. That was on Mashable the other day. Obviously, some of the big ones that are coming, December 1st and Knight's Tale, but that's been on before. They're just putting it back on there. Obviously, Anchorman 2. A lot of other things coming up now. December 3rd through the 6th, obviously American Horror Story is coming up there. Bill Burr, I'm sorry you feel that way, is going to be up there. That I will be watching. I really like Bill Burr. He always has a lot of good stuff. His comedy specials are always great. Obviously, as you know, Bill Cosby lost his Netflix comedy special, so I'd be curious to see who replaces them. Obviously, it's not Bill Burr, but I'm sure they're going to have somebody to replace him as far as that. Sharknado, Son of a Gun, all that stuff. Haunted House 2. Obviously, just a lot of good stuff coming to Netflix during the holiday season. Obviously, all the Christmas movies are up there already. That's every year. Oculus is actually going to be added up there as well. So just a lot of new movies being thrown up there now, and I think it's really cool. I like how Netflix always takes the time to actually change up their lineup. So especially with Bill Burr, Oculus, all that good stuff. So a lot of really great stuff. I, Frankenstein is actually coming on December 24th, right around Christmas time. That's coming up there. Labor Day is coming up there. A lot of movies that did fairly well in the theaters are actually coming up now. I know Oculus is one that a lot of people have been looking to. I know I've been looking forward to Bill Burr's comedy special being put up there. He's been big with Netflix. He's been really, really big as far as dealing with Netflix, and really started out with the comedy specials and doing that stuff. What's his name has done them, some of them as well. Jim Norton, a lot of those guys, trendsetters from the Opie and Anthony Show, comedians, have done a lot of comedy specials on Netflix, and they were one of the ones that really started that out. Some other news as well that was on Slashdot. Google Glass appearing to get Intel processors. That was fairly big news. Not a lot of information known yet on what's going on with that, but that was in the news as well this week. And then obviously some other news, the big news for me anyway, because I like the show. Obviously Netflix sets House of Cards 3 debut date. This time it's going to be out in February, a little later. Remember last season and season 4 that was out in January, but this year it's coming out in February 27th, so a little later this year. But obviously now, those of you that haven't watched, I don't want to give too much of it away, but obviously Netflix was, the first gold, season 1, won Netflix first Golden Globe in January, and obviously a couple other people actually won, got nominated and stuff. So Netflix, obviously, their House of Cards, their biggest show. But like I said, they will be debuting on the 27th of February, and as well, their first show ever on Netflix actually just started its 3rd season. Obviously, Lilyhammer, wonderful show, kind of a Sopranos kind of show, but it definitely is really, really great, and I really enjoy it. And Lilyhammer is another great show. But like I said, lot of good original programming coming to Netflix. I remember when they took a gamble on that a few years ago, and it's really paid off for them. Obviously, Sony leaks. Obviously, a lot of Sony hack. Obviously, they leak a lot of movies. Obviously, Fury leaked, and some other. Believe it or not, what's funny, even reading this article, what was interesting is that shows like Fury, which had 1.2 million views on it. Any show that really is targeted towards the young male demographic, that 18-34 demographic, usually does pretty well on pirated. But believe it or not, such shows as like kids shows like Annie and stuff like that, it only did like 200,000 views. So it's not. I mean, obviously these pirated movies seem to be targeted towards the young male. So like I said, definitely that was, they obviously there's apparently they have more movies that they're going to be leaking as time progresses, but right now the big one is Fury, which is out there. If you remember, the Expendables actually had something like this too. Expendables 3 was actually available on Blu-ray before it even was even out in theaters. That was a big thing. And if you remember as well, you had that other one as well. Flash was actually available. If you remember, I believe it was the first episode was available like a month before it aired on CW. So that was obviously something else as well. So Some other things as well going on in the news. We have actually just obviously Walking Dead mid-season finale set a new record for that show. That was on the news this week. Walking Dead, it just seems like every time you turn around, the show's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Not complaining, I like the show, but I'm just saying it seems like every time you turn around, that show just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And nothing wrong with that. Obviously big, fairly large. Anytime a death of a major character on any of these shows happens, obviously big ratings is always the thing. But that was came as a fairly big shocker to all of us. And like I said, we'll see. Obviously, it doesn't pick up now until February, but we'll keep an eye on it and see. But it looks like, it actually is amazing. I think it shocked all of us. Obviously, Sons of Anarchy this past week, everything going on with Cassie Siegel's character, that was actually a really shocking thing as well. Obviously, the final episode is going to be this Tuesday. If you haven't seen last week's episode, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you definitely want to watch it. It's probably, it was a real, it was really, like an oh my god kind of moment. I think a lot of people got shocked by it, but it definitely is a really good show. I'm sad to see it taken off the air, but they said they've taken it as far as they can go. So, AOL buys, I think it's Vidable. Still chasing online video dominance. That's on the news this week as well. Let's see. We have Old Navy, by the way, tries a Twitter button. Is in the news. Obviously, Old Navy, just like all these big box stores, obviously trying different things to keep up with the change in the way things are being done with the holiday season. Nothing wrong with that. But they're actually trying a Twitter button, and it actually did pretty good. So some other things as well. Google Fiber coming to Austin, Texas. That was in the news as well. I'm actually kind of shocked that Google Fiber is coming to Austin, Texas. We know that Verizon, a lot of those other places stopped doing fiber because they said it wasn't cost effective. But Google's going to keep rolling through with their fiber, and obviously Google's that's obviously a different business model than Verizon does, and Google obviously wants to get into the fiber optic business so they can kind of see more what people doing, more what people search, more what people actually do. Right now Google's capturing your search results, stuff like that. With Google Fiber, they can actually see what you're doing just in general, what you're downloading, what you're listening to, streaming, with Spotify, so that's one of the reasons I believe why Google is really getting into the fiber business, so they can actually capture more data, not just search results. So obviously, Firefox 34 arrives with video chat. Obviously, Yahoo's the default search provider. That was on Slashdot this week. A lot of things going on Slashdot as well, talking about, there's actually buzz around things causing. I guess they're actually looking to, no date yet, but I guess some of the providers, not the major ones like Verizon, AT&T, but some other providers are actually looking to actually roll out 5G. So I'd be curious to see how that's going to work. That's actually like an 800, that actually could, they're saying that upwards of, could provide 800 gigs to tough phones. I can't imagine that happening, but they're saying that they're actually looking at some providers are actually looking to roll out 5G within the next year or two. That would be quite interesting to see how that goes. Another interesting story, by the way, as well, and we've talked about schools and education and things of that nature, and how a lot of schools don't know how to handle technology or anything like that. But Los Angeles Unified School District actually had a bold plan to provide 650,000 students with Apple iPads. The cost, I believe they said, was about $1 billion. It was some kind of ridiculous number. And unfortunately for them, the project has been just plagued with problems. Obviously, you can't blame, you can't always blame, the IT person. You really can't. I mean, this seems like either poor planning or somebody told somebody just make it work, or let's just get it out there and pick up the pieces later. A lot of that happens in any IT environment, not just education, by the way. But it really seems like something really went wrong here. And now the FBI receives 20 boxes of documents regarding the district's procurement practices and stuff like that. As a lot of people know, I deal in security a little bit with my business, and one of the things that's very hard with the way the Apple designs a sandbox is it's actually very, very hard to actually capture data, on the actual iPad side. Now, you can do it. There are products out there that do it, that collect traffic and then do rendering and actually do analytics and actually go ahead and really, can provide you good information. But apparently, hundreds of students initially given the iPads a school year found ways to bypass security installations, download games, freely surf the web. Teachers complained that they were not properly trained on how to instruct students with new technology. And by the way, folks, this happens all the time, all over the country. This isn't just Los Angeles. I mean, having dealt with security and having dealt with school districts all over the country, this stuff happens all the time. This isn't anything new, but this was actually made it because apparently the kids were actually downloading BitTorrents. And we're doing a lot of things that they weren't supposed to be doing. Teachers were actually doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. And actually the FBI actually stepped in and actually confiscated quite a bit of the equipment. So, after questions were raised, after emails were discussed showing that the superintendent, had been in communication with vendors and stuff before the contacts were put into bid. Obviously, Pearson obviously was involved in this. Apple was involved in this. And obviously, like I said, it was either, if it's an expensive plan, it wasn't implemented right. The network administrator doesn't look like he knew what he was doing or didn't, or was told to pick up the pieces later. Doesn't look like the machines were managed, which a lot of people don't know this. You can actually manage iPads through Profile Manager. Apple does make a tool for it, but just a lot of people aren't informed about it. There are security tools out there that does let you manage iPads and stuff like that, but obviously the tools are expensive. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize a lot of not so much school districts, but a lot of places feel, that they don't want to spend the money on the management stuff. They would rather just, deal with a problem either by just, a lot of people say, well, let's get them out, and we'll let the PTU, and then we'll deal with the problems later. It doesn't always work that way, especially in big rollouts of a lot of products, especially when you start dealing with things like iPad and handheld devices. Those things are a lot more difficult to manage than Windows computers or Chromebooks, stuff like that. So this seems like it was just something that either wasn't thought out well, or people didn't know what they were doing, or it was one of those things, well, let's get the product out there and we'll deal with the issues later. Obviously it looks like, maybe the people that they brought in to consult with didn't help them enough, or there's a lot of things that it looks like it could be, but obviously that was obviously a story in the news this week on Slashdot. Some other things as well, since we are talking about education, there was another thing on Slashdot which I quickly went and took a look at before I went on with the podcast. In quarter 3 of 2014, IDC noted that Google shipped 750,000 Chromebooks to U.S. schools, while Apple only shipped 702,000 iPads. I'm going to tell you this. I've actually dealt with districts all over the country, and a lot of them just exclusively use Chromebooks. Obviously, the Chromebook. I don't know if any of you have priced any Chromebooks out, but the Chromebook is actually much cheaper. It's actually the price point is like $150, $199, and if it gets a virus, you just within minutes you can just reload it. Obviously, Apple doesn't have the problem. iPad doesn't have the problem with viruses yet, but Apple, the iPad has lost its lead over Google's line of Chromebooks. Obviously, the other problem as well, Google obviously offers, free management of the devices. A lot of Google services are free to students and teachers. Obviously, a lot of it's a price point as well. I mean, obviously, Google's not really in the hardware business where Apple is, so Google doesn't really worry about the price point as much as Apple does. But it looks like Chromebooks, the low cost has definitely went ahead. And I know there's a lot of schools that just use Chromebooks exclusively. They've completely gotten away from Windows or Apple. I know a lot of schools that have mixed environments, some that just have Apple. But according to these numbers, it looks like Chromebooks have really overtaken the iPads, and that really wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Chromebook is limited. I think there's a lot more usability on an iPad. I really do. But again, I think it really depends on what the environment is and what the people are doing. And I've said this many times on the show. I love people all the time and tell me, well, what do you think? What would you do? And I tell people all the time, well, it depends on your environment's needs. If you may need to have an Apple product or a Windows product because the software you have only supports that, and to change not only the product but to change the software product you're using, the price could be astronomical. So maybe you should stick with Windows or Apple products. Some people say, well, shouldn't we go all Chromebook? It depends. What are you doing with the Chromebooks? It really all depends on the company's needs and wants. Just so you know too, Core OS announced a competitor to Docker. That was in the news this week as well. Core OS is a derivative of Chrome OS and focuses on lightweight virtualization based on Linux containers. That was actually in the news this week. I'm curious to see how that is. A lot of people talking about virtualization on the Chromebooks. I haven't seen a lot of it yet myself, but I'm sure it's definitely going to be something that's in the works. Virtualization obviously just getting bigger and bigger, and I'm feeling going to see it more on Chromebooks and stuff, especially with virtualization of apps and stuff like that, because that would allow you to run Windows apps on a Chromebook, which is very useful. I know I run some Windows programs on my Mac, and it works great, but Chrome does not do that. The Chromebooks don't do that yet, so I'd be curious to see how that goes. Some interesting things as well. Microsoft's age-old clip art is no more. Microsoft has finally bid a goodbye to the age of clip art image library found on its Office products, as its usage has been declining over the years. Redmond replaced the clip art online image library with a Bing image search. Now, this means that people searching for online images inside an Office app will only be directed to a gallery provided by Bing Images that will bring in results. Bing's copyright filter based on Creative Commons licensing systems will let you get royalty-free images which can be used, shared, modified by personal or commercial use. That's actually big news to me, folks, because I remember, especially when I first started out in the industry 10, 15 years ago, everybody needed clip art, and now it's becoming a thing where a lot of people don't even have it anymore or don't use it, which to me is kind of big, because I remember just the big, huge push for clip art when I got into this industry. Everybody had to have Office. I remember there were places back in like Office 2000, clip art by default wasn't loaded on your machine, and I remember having to go to like 30 machines and load clip art on machines because people had to have it. But now obviously not as big of a thing anymore as it was, but again, that was back then. But so that actually is pretty big news, because that was a big, when clip art came out for Office, that was a huge thing, and that really put Microsoft in the lead. So obviously, folks, we're going to go ahead now and switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and talk about, take your questions, obviously, my answers, as we do every single show. And by the way, folks, as always, you can feel free to call us at our voicemail box, 570-630-0744. That's the number. Call it from any cell phone, touch tone phone. There's a thing for a touch tone phone. Anything, call, leave a voicemail. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can go ahead and email me. Or you can go ahead and obviously go to the website, thetechnologygeek.org, and go ahead and click on the button, ask a question, and there's several different options. The phone number's on there, our Skype address is on there, email address, all that is on there. And obviously our show, our question and answer section, is sponsored by our buddies over at Audible. Listen to audiobooks right on your mobile device or computer. audibletrial.com/techgeek, TECHGEEK. And really is a wonderful service, folks. I use it myself. I have an Audible account. I love listening to audiobooks. I've listened to all the Michael Connell books. books. I've listened to all the Steve Jobs. I listened to Steve Jobs' new book. I'm actually almost done with it now. I've listened to iWaz. I've listened to the Jason Bourne books, all of them. They're really a wonderful service. I'm really lucky to have them as a sponsor. And that's audibletrial.com/techgeek. You have one free download with our subscription. So you get one free download with our coupon code. Go ahead and use it. Even if you don't like it, you can still keep the book. And if you want to listen, go in, create it, use our coupon code. We'll get the credit for it. You'll get one free book and then cancel your service. Don't bother me. But again, that's audibletrial.com/techgeek. And first question I actually got this week was kind of an interesting one. It's actually from a friend of my mom's, actually. Is what is a good tablet for a senior? I found that especially the older generation that didn't grow up with computers. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people didn't grow up with computers, and I understand some people aren't as computer savvy, as others, which is perfectly fine. But these people still need to use technology to get through their daily lives as technology grows and changes. What I recommend, folks, is probably a good tablet for a senior. Probably an iPad. And I know I hate to say that, because iPads are so expensive. Even the iPad mini's got a pretty high price point. But I really believe that a good tablet. I think iPad does make the easiest one. I find most seniors can handle it. Most people, my mom does well with her iPhone. My dad even can handle it. I've had a lot of seniors do really, really well with Apple's devices because they are really a little bit simpler to use. So I think that an iPad would be the way to go. Chromebook could be a little bit complicated for them. And, I really think, I really truly believe that an iPad really is good for seniors, and seniors can definitely really handle it much better than a Chromebook could, or an Android tablet. So that's my feeling on it. Somebody asked what speaker would be the best for home theater and music. Bose puts out a good system. They always have. I like it. Sony puts out good stuff. The best bet is if you're going to go ahead and buy a home theater system, read the reviews on that you find online and decide what you're going to do with that. I definitely, like I said, I really believe that Bose is a good one. A little pricey. Sony puts out a good one. So somebody asked me another question. Should I buy an extended warranty on a plasma television? Obviously anytime you buy an extended warranty at any of these big box stores, you're getting whacked for 2 warranties. Every product comes with a year warranty. And then when you buy 3 years, you're paying for the first year twice. I don't know if you know that. A lot of people don't know that, but that's the truth. If it's an expensive plasma TV, if we're talking like a 60-inch, I would. We just got a 60-inch television, LG, actually, just over the past week, actually. We got it on Thursday. And we bought the extended warranty on it. I would. Especially on plasma, I would. But, get a couple-year warranty on it. I mean, they're not expensive. They're not cheap. So I would get it. If it's a small 19-incher, I don't know if they make plasmas 19-inch, but if it's a small 19-incher, a couple $100 or so, you may not want to spend the extra money. I know myself, my wife and I just purchased a dishwasher for the house, and I didn't buy the extended warranty. I got the dishwasher Black Friday sale. It's a $199 dishwasher. Why get a $300 warranty on it? I'll buy another one. So look at the price point, really the best way to go. But if you're buying a big screen plasma, 3D 60-inch, I would buy it. That's a $1,000 investment. Somebody asked here, interesting question. When will Netflix replace Silverlight with HTML5? Microsoft is stopping to support Silverlight, or they have already, I believe. So Netflix is slowly moving everything over to HTML5. I would imagine, from what I've read on the internet, it's either going to be the end of this year, which is only a couple weeks from now, but or probably early first quarter. They're going to have to, because obviously Silverlight's not supported anymore, and it's going to, with the Macs and all that, it's going to be in Chromebooks, is going to be much more difficult. So they're going to have to. But yeah, I would say probably within the first quarter, first half of next year at least. Somebody asked me a question: why does the keychain access keep popping up on my Mac? You see, that's the problem is you probably saved your password and then changed it, and now the keychain doesn't know what to do. You can actually go into the keychain and actually delete your old keychain passwords. You can delete them, or you can delete your local profile and just recreate all your passwords. That's what I've done in the past. But you can go into keychain and delete your old passwords. Somebody asked, is my BlackBerry email encrypted? BlackBerry does definitely do encryption of email. I know that it depends on the phone too itself. But if you're using, if you're using like Gmail on your BlackBerry, it's definitely encrypted. If you're using Yahoo on your BlackBerry, it's definitely encrypted. If you're using, your own, server that you designed, you might not have. It might not be encrypted, but if you're using anything you're doing as far as email goes, the provider should provide the encryption. Somebody asked, how can I add a Roku without an available HDMI port that allows searching on websites and forums? It tells me it's not possible. There is on the back of the Roku, because I had this problem too on my old TV. On the back of the Roku does actually have a spot where you can buy a cable from them that will plug into the back, and then it'll have the three wires. I think it's white, yellow, and red, and you can plug it into a port. Now, it's not going to be HD, so just remember that. That's not HD. That's just regular, standard resolution. HD, you will need an HDMI cable if you want to view like your Netflix in high def. If you want to do WWE, WWE Network in high def, you will need the HDMI port. But if you don't have that available, they do sell a wire that plugs into the back. I know because I had one at one point. Had one on my Nintendo. Had one on my Roku. They do sell it. Depending on the newer ones, I don't know if they come with that, but the older ones, the X2s did, and the X3s still do. So you might have to maybe get an older one off eBay if you already bought it, and there is no spot for that other cable, and there's just an HDMI port. You may be kind of stuck. So that's all for the questions this week. Actually, a lot of good questions this week. I'm actually really happy about that. I like when I get really good, hard, solid questions. Like I said, folks, as always, we appreciate when you support the sponsors. And like I said, on our website, you can go. There's a donation link. There's an Amazon link. If you guys could, any donations, anything you could do to give some money to the website to keep it going. We do have quite a large audience. We're building a larger audience. So obviously bandwidth and all that is obviously becoming a little more expensive than it was. But, any donations or anything you can do to support the sponsors helps us, and we appreciate it. As always, by the way, any of our ham radio operators, if you go up to our website, thetechnologygeek.org, there's a link up there. For amateurradiosupplies.com. They're an affiliate of ours on our website. Go ahead and click on that, and this way we'll get the credit for it. I know a lot of you guys do use that, and we appreciate it. So you can go to our website, technologygeek.org, and go to amateurradiosupplies.com. Click on the link, and this way we'll get the credit for some of the stuff you purchase. As always, folks, follow me on our website, technologygeek.org, Twitter, my call sign, KB3YUA, our YouTube channel, Instagram, all that stuff. We want to thank everybody for listening. And as always, we will see you next week. Thank you very much.